Hello, this is Jason Bowman, and I wanted to take a couple of minutes and walk through probably just the first couple months of the 2009 IRS tax calendar. This is a publication put out every year by the Internal Revenue Service that is very, very helpful. In fact, I would recommend going to irs.gov and printing out a copy of publication 1518. Again, that's publication 1518. That's what we're looking at right here on the screen. And this is really handy to have, especially if you are the individual within your business that is responsible for handling payroll taxes in particular. So let's take a quick look through this. And I'm only going to point out the major dates on here that you really need to be aware of, okay? Number one is that if you have employees that were being given the advanced earned income credit, then as of January 1st, you can turn that function off if that employee has not submitted a new Form W-5. Okay? And then in that same vein, the individuals have to file a new form if they want to restart that, or if it's a new employee that hasn't been doing it, they also need to submit a new form here at the beginning of the year for new employees that have not previously claimed the advanced earned income credit. Next thing that I really want to point out is if you are self-employed and you make estimated tax payments, then on January 15th is the deadline for paying the last installment for your 2008 estimated taxes. Now, there are several deadlines over the next few months that are really important to small business owners, okay? And aside from your regular federal tax deposits, which you'll see here on the calendar for the 7th, the 9th, the 14th, the 16th, the 23rd, the 28th, the 30th, depending upon your deposit schedule. The things that you need to keep aware of, and actually I'm surprised that this is not on the calendar, but do keep in mind that you have until the last day of January to issue W-2s to your employees and Form 1099s to your independent contractors. Okay? Now let's go down and take a look at February. In February, you have a couple of other deadlines, and actually here's that note about the W-2s. In February, also, don't forget to make your regular federal tax deposits. And you also need to begin thinking about your Forms 940, which is your annual unemployment return, and for most people, your fourth quarter 2008 Form 941, your quarterly employment tax return. Some employers will file their 943, 944, or 945, depending on their special tax circumstances. And those are going to be due by the 10th of February this year. So be sure to have those done. Those are very important to be filed, especially if you're in a tax debt situation where you owe the government money. You want to establish immediately a pattern of filing these kinds of tax returns on time and filing your W-2s on time up here on February 2nd and making all of your federal tax deposits on time as well. So that is the major deadline that we have in February. Now let's march on into March. March is a big month. What you'll see here is two primary things. One is the filing deadline for your corporate tax return if you are a C Corp or an S Corp. And that deadline this year is February 16th. Also, if you have not previously filed your election to become an S Corp, that is also due on February 16th. If you are a large partnership, your Schedule K1 and 1065 is due to each partner. Now, also in March is the filing deadline for forms W-2, W-2G, 1098, 1099, and 8027. These are the copies of 1099s and W-2s that go to the government. Now, the deadline is March 2nd, right here, if you are filing on paper. If you are filing these copies of these information returns to the government electronically, the deadline is March 31st. So again, at the end of January, and actually in this year it's February 2nd, copies of W-2s, 1099s are due to employees and contractors by February 2nd, but you have to file copies with the government by March 2nd if you're filing them on paper, and March 31st if you're filing them electronically. These are some of the major dates and deadlines for taxpayers here in the first quarter of the year. And real quickly, let's take a look up ahead at April. April is a big one. Obviously, April 15th. This is the deadline for filing your Form 1065 if you're a partnership and sending a copy of the K1 to each partner. This is also the date by which, if you are an estimated taxpayer, that you must pay estimated taxes, either 1040 ES or even your corporate estimated tax. And then for individual filers, this is obviously the dreaded 1040 deadline as well. And then if you're an employer, the end of April is also the deadline for filing the first quarter 2009 Form 941, your employment tax return. So, as you can see, in the first 4 months of 2009, there are a lot of deadlines, especially if you have employees. And like I said earlier, if you are in a situation where you owe the government money, it is imperative that you establish a track record of filing compliance. The IRS will be much easier for you to deal with in negotiating your tax debt settlement if you are current with your filing requirements and your deposits. I hope that this has been helpful, and again, I encourage you to download from irs.gov, publication 1518, and also, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. Take care.